The biggest squig in the history of ever.
Spiky bits.
Actually, now that I think about it, that might not be factually true. It might be the biggest squig as a part of a vehicle ever, I suppose, because there are technically bigger squigs out there. Anyways, welcome back, Hobby Maniacs. I'm Rob Barrett from SpikyBits.com, and today we're going to unbox and build the new Orks kill rig from Games Workshop for the new 9th edition Warhammer 40k Orks. Really interesting kit. $125 retail, of course. You can always get your hobbies for less from dicehead.com, Amazon, or hopefully your local game store. Unfortunately, this particular kit was allocated to 5 per store, which is, I mean, it's not as bad as the Great White Squig that was allocated to 2, but, you know, this, I could see where some people would want some of these, maybe multiples, but being at $125, it's kind of a lot of cheddar to shell out at one time, so I don't really know what to make of it. I mean, allocations suck, but it's just kind of the way it is right now, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, it's a really neat kit. We're going to definitely talk about a lot of what's going on with this. I don't personally know what to make about the price point, unfortunately, because it's kind of in a weird place, right? So let me show you what I mean by that. So you obviously get the instruction manual, then you get a squad size sprue, a larger size sprue, larger vehicle size sprue, and another larger vehicle size sprue, a 170 millimeter round base, which generally is reserved for bigger things, knights, or Knight Titans, larger. I mean, the Orks had 150 oval for their buggies and stuff a few years back, and then a 32 mil base for the Word Boy, which I didn't realize until we started looking at this kit. He's actually part of this kit. So that's when the valuation is kind of like, it's like hard to put a value on because it's $125, but technically you get a $35 miniature in here because that's the new price point for Games Workshop. You know, single model characters is $35. So then, I mean, technically, I guess you could say it's kind of worth, what, $90 for the kit, which seems more in line with some of the other vehicle kits out there. Obviously, all this stuff's expensive. All hobbies are expensive. But when you start looking at, well, why did they get to this price point? And that's the only conclusion I can personally draw, right? Because Knights are like 150, 170 now, and you know some of the greater demons and things are 140. This is 125. So it's just a curious price point in my mind. Taking a look at the instructions, and honestly, just thinking about it, I think maybe another reason it's 125 is because they expect people to buy multiples, which is kind of the case when they keep prices a little bit lower on things that if this was a one-off, this might be like a 140, a 150 kit. Don't really know what to say about it, but what we're going to show you today is how to build it modularly, maybe with magnets, maybe not with magnets. Who knows? How do magnets even work? But sometimes we can get away, which I think is really neat, making both versions of a kit without any magnets. And that's where, for me at least, the value is for a Games Workshop kit. Because if I can make both versions of it and quote unquote future-proof my miniatures, I don't have to worry about FAQs. I don't have to worry about rules edition changes. I mean, I guess if the model itself is no longer as desirable, like, you know, they squat the firstborns or something, but I mean, that was kind of 20 years in the making. So I feel like I'm not as mad about that as if I buy something, I hobby on it, I get it all painted up within, you know, a month or two, and then I want a good couple years worth of play out of this if I'm going to keep the army, right? So that's kind of where I'm at, and that's why I really like doing these videos, to show you guys how to make these kits and get the most hobby dollars out of it, because hobby dollars are, they don't grow on trees, right? So here's what you're going to get inside. We just showed you the 2 sprues, squad size sprue, 170 mil base, that's a Titan size base, and a 32. What I also like about these manuals, and if you remember, you know, if you've been in the hobby for a long time, they didn't used to colorize these. So it's kind of like a crapshoot to try to even see where stuff went. Now, they're still getting better at the design of these kits. Like, I was traditionally trained on engineering and how to actually lay out part diagrams, and you know, because I had to basically train to, you know, make these work packages and then, you know, send them down, and people could actually build the stuff that we were making on the actual ships. So it was very important to show where all the stuff went and things like that, and that's how they kind of train you. You know, if you're going to go into mechanical engineering and, you know, maybe engineering for business, you want to be able to show the customer how to set all this up, and they've gotten better at that too, and I'm going to show you a little bit of that. But what I really like about this, and why I just took 2 minutes to explain all that, is because they shade it. So you can see in blue here, this is the kill rig version, and then in green here, it's the hunter rig. And then you can see the parts that are different, and automatically right off the bat, you're like, holy crap, there's not that many parts that are different. So yeah, I think there's a huge potential here to make this both versions of this kit. Now getting into the big squigger, this guy is completely hollow on the inside, it looks like, except for some parts up in the front and the jaw, and then you glue his legs on separately, and then some armor plates and things, which are really interesting. And then over here you've got the build of his howdah that goes on top of him, right? And this is something I was talking about on the design side. So like right here, you can see like this goes over top, and then this starts to go back and kind of build this area behind the squig. But they don't really, they're switching views on you. And what they should do, in my mind, and how I would do it based on what I learned, you know, in engineering, is you should put it like an arrow here, just so the customer knows, or the person that's going to build it knows, oh, it's rotated right here. And actually right here, it's inverted. So they should almost definitely notate that this was inverted, because this is the bottom where you're supposed to put these support struts, which, thinking about it now, this might be better to glue to the actual squig itself to lock in and give the support, because if you do this in sections, which I definitely recommend, and we'll try to build, so you can paint this separate and you can have these separate, because it looks like the wheels just kind of pop on the side here. What you definitely want to do is, and I think the wheels are flat. Yeah, the wheels are flat. So you want this to all line up, and you don't want it to teeter-totter, right? Because you don't want your Orks teeter-tottering off Jabba's, new Orks squig barge. And so when you assemble it and you go back, you might paint it separately. You're going to want all this parts not glued down at first, so you can actually get a nice settlement of your whole assembly on the table, or on the base. So what I would do is I would probably glue those onto him. Don't glue these wheels right here, and allow it to kind of set and kind of settle. And then once you figure out where to actually glue everything together, maybe after you paint it and such, that's when I think it's going to be good to kind of glue everything down. Now back here, it looks like the tail kind of touches the strut bar. I'm not exactly sure what all that is about, but so it's going to touch up here. It's going to touch with these supports and this back strut, his little nubby tail. Now something I don't like, and just looking at this, is these little side ski things right here, which are really neat, and they got these little buzzsaws. I like that. But I don't like, oh, okay, it's supposed to be glued down. Okay, that makes more sense, because I didn't like how this was the only point of contact, because I could see it definitely teeter-tottering itself. But if they say glue it down, that I think I'd glue that right there and then glue that down once you settle the whole assembly. I know a lot of words there. I'm sorry. I'm just kind of looking at this and being like, how would I build this? I think this is the best way to go. And then it looks like the main shaft here that's gonna go up to the gunner's nest is hollow as well, and that glues together. That looks pretty straightforward. And then you got the other strut piece right here, the little ski, so to speak. Buzzsaw. Then you start assembling the duders. This is I don't know, this is the captain. I'm the captain now. So this is the little captain guy. He looks pretty straightforward. Glue them together. I wouldn't glue him in here. Oh no, wait, what is this? Yeah, okay. This is the captain guy. And there's a little wheel, so he's literally the captain now. I don't know why they tell you to do it. This is weird. So they tell you to make the duder, but then, oh, okay, this is the assembly first. So you put all the cockpit together and then the little steering wheel, and then he goes into the steering. That's going to be interesting. I don't know if I glue that steering wheel down. I'd almost glue the steering wheel to him, just so you know you can fit it in there. But anyways, more stuff here. It looks like you start putting the assembly like this. The captain's going to actually go into the crow's nest over here. You've got these strut bars. Those look really interesting. Okay, cool. That definitely gives us some definition. I like that. It almost starts looking like a dragster at some point. And then you've got the two gunners. This guy, they say don't glue him in, which I definitely recommend. Paint all these guys separate, because painting Orks green doesn't go so well with metals if you want to do all that separately. And then you've got the main gunner up here with the harpoon, yar. And then the warboy, which again, I didn't realize was a separate kit. I thought this was coming out as a $35 kit. So there's a little hidden value there, I suppose. And then these two little guys that go on the side just to pick up the stragglers. And then you've got the, what is this called? The platform. Oh, it's just a kill rig. So this is where the dude sits in the back. I guess the warboy is supposed to sit in the back. And then you can switch it up between this gunner going here and this gunner going... I guess that gunner only goes there with the harpoon. Oh no, he goes up top too. There's a lot of stuff going on here. Okay, cool. So and then you can put him on the front doing his little tap dance of orc, or he can be in the back inside this little howdah thing. But I wonder if they want you to glue him down. So here's how they make it all modular. It looks like there's little sockets, and this socket goes across this little support shaft, and then this looks like there's pegs, and it goes into a peg. Oh yeah, here it is. So check it out. So there's basically like, hey, this goes across the strut, these go in the pegs. Don't glue it down. Okay, that makes sense. Don't glue that down. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, they don't want you to glue it to the base, which I think is kind of silly. So if you're going to do the warboy, you might as well glue it to a base so you can use them in as your army. The question is, will that 32mm base fit in there, which we're going to find out. And then here's a different variant. So key to all this, making it modular probably, is not gluing these sockets down, not gluing the guns into the sockets. They put them on the base here, which I think is smart. And that's it. Okay. Oh, I didn't realize there was a little orc there in a porthole, climbing up this little tuber thing. That's weird. How do you get in there? Poor little guy. Maybe that's a grot. Definitely got to be a grot. And then there's all the weapons, but of course we've seen all that from the Orc Codex. Now, when it comes to the sprues, this is the squad size sprue. You know, everything is detailed pretty well out. I do like that they put the little notches in the bone horns and things. Used to have to paint those in by hand. They're kind of a pain. But I think Games Workshop pretty much has it nailed to always know where to put a bunch of detail, but also leave a bunch of kind of areas just to paint in and do some fades, or just kind of have some blank detail, you know, just to put a nice wash or something over, because you don't want to load up a model with too much detail, which I think is super important. They also split up that rig thing, that support mast. So there's the one with the little porthole on that sprue, and then this one's over here. You can kind of see it forms like, oh, you got all the howdahs and things, and then all the little parts and all the buzzsaws. So I think, for the most part, you're going to use every part off the sprue. It isn't easy to build, unfortunately. It's semi-easier to build because they have the little notches and the little studs to kind of lock into, which is really nice that they're able to do that with all the CAD design and things. I'm really interested to see how those little huge little lines go together that are on each side of it at a kind of a 45-degree angle. And then there's the struts. And it looks like the struts, yeah, there's little pieces of terrain on it. So those are actually supposed to glue down onto the base, which kind of makes sense. And then here's the big orc himself, which is really cool. Like I said, they know enough about where to leave blank areas of detail, but also where to put enough areas of detail. And definitely in the face, you're going to see a lot of, you know, you want to see some painted detail on the face because, you know, our eyes as humans naturally look at the faces of things. That's just how we interact with each other and stuff. So that definitely makes a lot of sense there. And then you can see the wheels have the flat bottom, and they're just going to kind of push fit in on the sides of the rail car thing right here, which I just showed you. So let's get this all clipped down and see how it goes together. Whew. Okay, so, well, about 3 hours later, you're gonna have something that looks approximately like this, which it's definitely a really neat kit for sure. There's lots of potential here. You can see I kind of tacked down the riders on the side here. Now the howdah up top here has its own socket on the bottom, so you don't have to quite worry about doing any little pegs or anything like that for that, because that'll just sit up there. Now this one here, we tack down a little bit just because I feel like it sits a little better. This particular one has a socket, so and it's tight enough that you can just kind of stick it in like that, and then you're good to go, because supposedly you're supposed to switch between this one here, which I tacked down as well, that goes on that little rail. You can see the little rail right there. So apparently this one switches sometimes, depending on which version you're going to do, to this upper position, this poop deck, so to speak, right here. So that's where that guy goes. And of course, no thing wants to stay because that's just how it is. And then we've got the warboy in the back here, which is really interesting because he, in the hunter version, goes up on the poop deck, but also in the other version, he actually, did I say it backwards? I don't know which one which. But this base kind of fits in here, which I feel like is okay. I mean, I feel like that's not too bad. It's not 100% flush, but you get a secondary figure, which is, you know, gluing that down seems kind of dumb. So putting them up there, and then you can have them loose to kind of put in any position right here, or if you want to put them up on top of this poop deck, depending on which version you build, you can have him to go up there as well, which I think is pretty neat. So all that together, these actually slot in and can stay, these little wires here, they can stay with tension, but they're super annoying. So I used a little bit of the super thin Tamiya glue just to kind of lock those back in. They weren't glued in at first, but then I was like, you know what? It's just a little hassle. This guy, definitely worth building with the steering wheel attached to him so he can fit into here, because otherwise it's really hard to attach that. We had to actually cut that little part out just to be able to fit him back in there. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you is how all this goes together. So this will actually sit by itself, and you can kind of see what I was saying about the assembly here. You're going to want to make sure that this sits okay when you put this little squig duder in here, and I think it's a good idea to kind of put those support struts, glue them onto him, because you can paint this guy and just come in and pick out that detail with metal, because you're already going to have to do that up here, which really isn't that big of a deal. And then when you put him onto this, he just slots under here, and these little nubs go right about here. And then you can look and make sure that his little tail, which you can't see, hold on, let me grab this. You want to see that his little tail right there locks in. There's a little space for it to lock into. So when you get done painting it, you can just make sure you glue that right over that little support bar. Make sure he's flush like this. Make sure that this is all flushed and glue that down, because it'll kind of torque up a little bit. But once you're ready to glue it down to the base, you're good to go. But you can also keep it in assembly, just kind of like we have right here. So a really easy build. Once you get all the parts together, the problem is it's going to take you about 3 hours to get this bad boy together, which really, I mean, honestly, it doesn't. Oh, and then this one switches to the top. That doesn't seem like so bad of a time frame to actually build this model up here. So this one sets up here too, just to kind of depending which version you want to build, if you're going to do that. And then put this thing back. Actually, I guess that is the build of it right there. But yeah, so everything kind of locks together, everything kind of slots down and kind of puts it wherever you want. And I mean, I guess you could glue both versions down if you really wanted to. It doesn't super matter, just kind of depending on what you're wanting to do with your particular kill rig version here. But you know, I think making it a little bit more modular would be probably the most ideal thing, just so you can still kind of come back and mess around with it a little bit, depending on what becomes the meta, or what the rules change down the road from a FAQ to even a new edition of the game altogether. So that is it for our unboxing build for the new kill rig / hunter rig for the Orks in 9th edition 40k. I hope you enjoyed it. Well, you know, just hit us up with any questions or comments, you know, on how you built yours or anything we might have forgotten right there. But overall, I think it's a really neat kit. Just, you know, set aside about 3 hours or so to kind of get it all together. And no magnets required, no batteries not included, no magnets required. So that's it for this one. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you can be the very first to like and comment on all our videos. If you liked that video feature, consider supporting us over at patreon.com and get back in the mail each month a miniature crate full of some of the stuff we review here, as well as some of the top 3D artist designs out there too, to help support what they're doing. Plus discount coupon codes from some of those same manufacturers. They're yours to keep, whether you cancel or stay on. It's totally up to you. Obviously, we want to keep you as happy as possible. So check it out over at patreon.com/spikybits.